The moment that changed everything. Have you ever had one of those moments that completely turns your world upside down? A single instant that makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. Well, that's exactly what happened. To me, on what seemed like just another ordinary Tuesday morning. Let me start from the beginning. I was 38 years old. And honestly, I had always been proud of one thing about myself. Every single time I looked in the mirror, I couldn't help but smile a little. Time had been really kind to me, you know? All those hours I spent working out at the gym, taking care of my skin with fancy creams and face masks, eating healthy foods, and living a good lifestyle, it all paid off. Still looked young and attractive, maybe even more beautiful than when I was in my 20s. Nathan, her husband, used to tell me all the time how gorgeous I was. "Clara, you're absolutely stunning," he would say, running his fingers through my hair. But here's the thing. Nathan worked so much that he was hardly ever home anymore. Sometimes days would go by, and I would almost forget that he had even said those sweet words to me. It was like living with a ghost of compliments. That particular morning started just like any other. Nathan had rushed out of the house super early for work, probably around 6 a.m. I remember hearing his car start in the driveway and then fade away as he drove off to another long day at the office. The house became completely quiet after that, and honestly, I had grown to love these peaceful moments. These were the times when I could really focus on myself, when I could breathe and just be me. I decided that morning would be perfect for some self-care. You know how sometimes you just need to pamper yourself a little bit? That's exactly how I was feeling. I thought a nice long shower would be the perfect way to start my day. There's something magical about warm water and a little bit of alone time that always made me feel so much better about everything. I walked slowly into our big bathroom, the one with the fancy marble counters and the huge mirror that Nathan had installed last year. I pulled out one of my favorite face masks, the green one that smells like cucumbers and makes my skin feel like silk. I spread it carefully all over my face, making sure to get every spot, and then I stepped into the shower. Oh, my goodness, the feeling of that warm water hitting my body was absolutely incredible. It was like all the stress and worry from the past few weeks was just washing away down the drain. I closed my eyes and tried to clear my mind of all the thoughts that had been bothering me lately. The steam filled the bathroom, and I could feel my muscles relaxing completely for the first time in ages. When I finally got out of the shower, I felt like a completely new person. My skin was glowing, and I felt fresh and alive. I decided to put on my favorite red lingerie set. You know, the one that always made me feel powerful and incredibly sexy. Red had always been my special color. It made me feel confident and beautiful in a way that no other color could. I grabbed a soft towel and started drying my long hair, letting it fall naturally around my shoulders. As I was doing this, I caught sight of myself in that big bathroom mirror. I stopped what I was doing and really looked at myself. I wiped the face mask off slowly, revealing my smooth, glowing skin underneath. Standing there in my red lingerie, I couldn't help but think that Nathan would have absolutely loved to see me like this. But of course, he wasn't there. He was probably already in some boring meeting thinking about numbers and business deals instead of his wife at home. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more amazing real-life stories like this one. I whispered to myself, practicing what I would say if I ever told this story to someone. You're going to want to watch this until the very end because what happens next is going to completely blow your mind. At that exact moment, I had totally and completely forgotten about Ethan's return. Nathan's son had come back home after going through some really tough times in his life. To be completely honest with you, I still wasn't used to having him around the house. For so many years, it had just been Nathan and me living in this big house. We had our routines, our quiet mornings, our private moments. Having someone else there felt strange and different. I had completely forgotten that Ethan was even in the house that morning. Suddenly, the sound of the bathroom door opening made me jump out of my thoughts. My heart nearly stopped beating. Ethan. I almost screamed his name. There he was, standing right there in the doorway, looking just as shocked as I was. His eyes were wide, and he was clearly trying very hard not to look directly at me, but at the same time, it was obvious that he was. Having trouble looking away, the poor guy was processing what was happening, and his face was getting redder by the second. "Clara, oh my God, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice shaking with embarrassment. "I saw that the door was open just a crack, and I thought maybe you were done. I was going to take a shower myself." We locked eyes for what felt like forever, but was probably only a few seconds. The weight of that moment settled over both of us like a heavy blanket. I could feel the electricity in the air between us. My hand reached out automatically to grab my towel, but it was already way too late. He had already seen everything. Ethan's face was bright red now, almost as red as my lingerie. My whole body was filled with this strange, unexpected electricity that I had never felt before. It was like every nerve in my body had suddenly woken up after being asleep for years. "Ethan, have you seriously never heard of knocking on doors?" Okay, trying my absolute best to keep my voice steady and calm. But even as I said it, I could hear that my voice was shaking just as much as his was. Yeah, you're absolutely right." "I'm so sorry, Clara," he said quickly, and then he closed the door fast. I could hear his footsteps rushing away down the hallway, but the damage was already done. Those few seconds had completely shattered the normal, everyday routine of my life. Everything had been turned completely upside down in an instant. This had to be just an accident, right? Just a simple mistake that could happen to anyone. But then, why was my heart beating so incredibly fast? Why did I feel like I had just run a marathon when all I had been doing was standing in my bathroom? The fact that Ethan had seen me, like that, so vulnerable and exposed, had sparked something strange and exciting deep inside me. I was embarrassed, absolutely mortified, but at the exact same time, there was a part of me that kinda liked it. And that scared me more than anything. I tried my best to pull myself together and close the door properly, but my mind kept going back to that moment over and over again. I kept thinking about how I had looked when I got out of the shower, how the steam had made my skin glow, how my red lingerie had fit my body perfectly. And most of all, I kept thinking about the way Ethan had looked at me. I had never seen myself as vulnerable and exposed as I had been in that moment. It was strange and confusing, but also somehow exciting. I was embarrassed beyond belief, but at the same time, I felt more alive than I had in months. For a long time, I just stood there in the bathroom, not even realizing what was happening to me. The confusion was taking over my mind completely. I walked slowly toward the big mirror and looked at myself again. My red lingerie was still clinging perfectly to my body, making my skin glow in the bathroom light. My body, even though I was 38 years old, still looked young and attractive. All those years of taking care of myself had really paid off. It wasn't just my body either. My eyes were still bright and full of life. My hair was shiny and healthy. Everything about me still looked vibrant and fresh. My muscles were firm from all those hours at the gym. And my skin was soft, smooth, and completely flawless. Seeing myself like this gave me a feeling of strength and confidence that I hadn't felt in such a long time. But as I was looking at myself and feeling proud of how I looked, I kept thinking about that look in Ethan's eyes. I couldn't stop wondering how he really saw me in that moment. What was he thinking when he looked at me? How carefully had he looked at me? Did he think I was beautiful? Something deep inside of me was trying to stop these thoughts, telling me they were wrong and dangerous. But I couldn't make them go away. As my eyes scanned my reflection in the mirror, I felt proud of how attractive I looked in my red underwear. Then suddenly, I remembered something that made my heart skip a beat. I had seen Ethan come out of the shower before, wearing nothing but a small towel wrapped around his waist. There was a sudden flicker of something in my eyes as I thought about this. Ethan had always been a handsome young man. Physically, he was quite impressive. Tall, strong, with broad shoulders and muscles that showed he took good care of himself. But as I started to see him in this new way, I began to feel emotions that I had never felt before. I started to wonder about him and about myself. I started to feel something for him that I knew I shouldn't be feeling. It had always been just a simple thought in my head before, just noticing that he was attractive. But now these feelings were strangely affecting my whole body in ways I didn't understand. Before I knew what was happening, I found myself holding my breath as I thought about him. My heart was beating faster, and I could feel my cheeks getting warm. But then, like a cold splash of water, I heard the voice of guilt inside my head. Nathan. Yes, Nathan was still in my life too. My husband, who was 47 years old and a very successful businessman. He worked so incredibly much that sometimes he didn't have any time for me at all. I started to question my marriage with Nathan for the first time in years. Were we really happy together, or had I just gotten used to being lonely? Had I just gotten used to him not being around? Nathan seemed to have lost interest in me recently. After his last long business trip, which lasted almost 3 weeks, I realized that it was like he never really cared about me at all anymore. I had tried so hard to fix things between us to bring back the spark we used to have. But that old warmth and love seemed to be completely gone. Nathan was so focused on his work, his meetings, his business deals, that he really couldn't give me any time or attention at all. It felt like I was married to a stranger who just happened to live in the same house as me. It was just another routine evening when Nathan came home from work. He had dinner with Ethan and me, but nothing else was different or special. We made small talk about our days, but there was no real connection, no spark, no intimacy. But then, Nathan said something that caught my attention. We're going to a party tomorrow night. At that moment, it felt like exactly what I needed to distract myself from all the confusing thoughts that had been filling my head for the past few days. A party sounded perfect. Yeah, a party sounds great, I said, trying to sound excited. That could be a wonderful opportunity for us to spend some time together. A few weeks earlier, when I had first heard Nathan mention this party, I had imagined having a romantic night with him. I pictured us spending the evening together, talking and laughing like we used to. Him giving me his full attention for once, maybe even creating a little excitement and passion between us again. But then Ethan spoke up and changed everything. Actually, I have a flight tomorrow evening, he said casually. I'm going to visit a friend in another city, so you two can go to the party alone. By the time you get back home, I'll already be on my flight. Ethan was always like this. Young and free, able to make plans and travel wherever he wanted at a moment's notice. When I thought about how much younger and freer he seemed compared to Nathan and me, it made me feel a little envious. It was so easy for him to do things like this, to just pack a bag and go on an adventure. On the other hand, Nathan was so completely focused on his work that he didn't really care about fun things like traveling or adventures anymore. I still had a chance to go to the party with Nathan, and I was determined to make it special. But I noticed that Nathan's eyes still had that same distance in them that had been there for the past few weeks. Still, I wanted to show him that I cared about our relationship, that I was willing to try. So I got dressed up really nicely for the party. I put on a beautiful red, form-fitting, elegant dress that hugged my curves in all the right places. I did my makeup carefully, making sure everything was perfect. I styled my hair in a way that I knew Nathan used to love. I spent hours getting ready, all just to try to impress Nathan and maybe remind him of how attractive his wife could be. But things didn't go at all the way I had planned and hoped they would. After the party, no matter how good I looked or how hard I had tried to get Nathan's attention, I didn't get that romantic night alone with him that I had been dreaming about. Instead, Nathan told me he was going to go out with his friends. He said it was for a business meeting, but I knew it was just an excuse to avoid spending time with me. He was going to leave me alone at home again, just like always. I was alone. Again, completely and utterly alone. Something deep inside me broke that night. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I felt so incredibly sad and disappointed. The time that I was supposed to spend with Nathan, the romantic evening I had imagined, had slipped through my fingers like sand. When I got home that night, I was a little drunk from the party and feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my entire life. I felt broken and empty inside. When I went upstairs to our bedroom and started taking off my beautiful dress and my makeup, the only thing that caught my attention was how much effort I had put into trying to look perfect for Nathan. All that preparation, all that hoping to spend a meaningful night with my husband, and for what? For nothing at all. Was left in just my black lace underwormy frustration, grew the red dress, the makeup, everything was for nothing. I felt empty in that moment. I got a little angrier, but I also thought I needed to do something to get through this. Night hat made me feel so broken I quickly decided to head to the kitchen. Maybe a drink, maybe a cigarette. I needed to clear my head. I just wanted to relax for a moment to pull myself together. I went to the fridge, poured some alcohol into a glass, then pulled out a pack of cigarettes and lit one. The smoke made my throat feel strangely worn out tonight. Felt like everything had come to a halt and was stuck right in my face. At that meant something unexpected happened. I heard a footstep and my eyes immediately shot to the kitchen. Door Etha Washam. I didn't understand when he came back or why he was here. But in that instant, I was totally stunned. I'd been so focused on imagining a quiet night alone with Nathan, and now finding Ethan standing there in front of me had such a strange effect on me. Ethan had originally been supposed to leave Butha's friends' plans, changed his flight gate, canceled something I never even considered, and now here we were face to face in the kitchen. I was left standing there confused, seeing Ethan standing in front of me like this was totally unexpected. Standing there in my blacklist lingerie was definitely something I wouldn't normally do, but that's how happened me. I took a deep breath, trying to avoid looking at him, feeling embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Ethan," said my voice trembling a bit. "I didn't know you were here. I didn't realize it would. Beth, is weird to see you here." I lowered my head, trying not to make eye contact. I couldn't quite figure out how to express mess of emotions I was feeling, but Ethan, without seeming surprised at how calmly stepped closer, there was a mething in his eyes that shifted hepaused for a moment, then slowly asked, "Why are you crying, Clara? Why are you upset?" His voice was different than usual. This time it sounded more sincere, more affected. His eyes seemed like they were seeing straight into my soul. As he stepped closer, he smiled. But it wasn't just a smile on his face. It was in high size. To my mind was a whirlwind, because I could feel in that moment he wasn't just Hawkeye was affecting me physically but emotionally as well. My feelings were so mixed up, but there was also something completely different inside me. Ethan's gaze was so genuine that instead of being afraid of the effect it had on me, stepped towards him with his words through confusion inside. Me deepened. I opened slow, looked up and saw the sincere expression on his face. His gaze was so intense that I felt like he wasn't just close to me physically, but emotionally too. For a moment, I felt how broken I was, frustration of not being able to have the night I had imagined. Tears quickly started to fall from my eyes as Ethan got closer. He softly said, "Clarado, you know how beautiful you are." His words made me feel a bit of relief, but also left me shocked. Sat up. "I've noticed how Nathan hasn't been able to give you enough attention because of his work," he continued, "but you're really special and beautiful, and you deserve to have this night." His words comforted me a little, but my feelings still weren't settling. I felt so complicated and intense inside that even being this close to him was preventing Jevering from going back to normal. Ethan's eyes were so deep that I felt myself getting lost in them. In that moment, my mind seemed to freeze, and slowly I took another step toward Heimthon, stood frozen in surprise. As I took a step toward him, I saw the expression in his eyes change, and I couldn't make sense of the emotions inside me. Then everything happened in an instant. thinner conflict I was feeling, mixed with overwhelming desire to kiss him for a moment. All I wanted was to get closer to him and let go. Then, in a moment, oh Fimples, I kissed Ethan. It happened so quickly, I hadn't even prepared myself. My eyes closed, and as my lips met time seemed to stop the warmth. I felt the rapid beating of my heart, Andy. Tension in his body, all of fist, made me forget everything in an instant. At that point, I could feel Ethan waiting for me to kiss him back. The warmth on my lips clearly showed me how strong his response was. Slowly, as his hand slid tummy waist, the distance between us disappeared completely. All the complex emotions inside me instantly posted into a rush of desire. As I heard his breath, I instinctively pressed myself closer to him. Quickly, we moved from the kitchen toward the living room, our lips never parting with every step. Our body escalated with the walls, and in Thatman's intensity, we embraced each other tighter. As Ethan's hands roamed my body, we collided with the walls and moved toward the living room door. Then somehow we found ourselves on the couch in the living room, side by side, breathless. Ethan had left his pants in the kitchen next to the couch, and my black lace underwear lay on the floor. I realized how strange the moment was, but at the same time, I had completely lost myself. I opened my eyes and looked at him, taking deep breaths, noticing how quickly everything had escalated. I read the expression on my face and smiled faintly. His eyes still showed how much he was affected by me. He took a deep breath, looked at me, and said, "Clara, what happened? Why did we do this?" I, a little surprised but somewhat relieved, followed his gaze. I didn't know what to say, but I had to say something. It just happened in the heat of the moment. I said, my eyes shifting to him. "But I don't know. I just wanted to let out the feelings inside me. I thought I couldn't spend this night any other way." Ethan nodded and slid his hand through my hair. "Is it really wrong for us to get this close?" he asked. His hands were on my waist, and his fingers wandering over my body left a deep impact with every passing second. My breath was short as he looked into my eyes. He took a deep breath and leaned in toward me slowly. He began speaking as if opening up. "I had been betrayed. Clara, I was going through a really tough time, but right now, I feel completely different," he said. The sincerity in his voice surprised me on dot. The same time, it eased me. He took another step closer, and I felt myself getting lost in the depth of his eyes. "I feel so close to you." These feelings surprise me. "But I can feel you, Clara. I can feel you so close." All my emotions mixed together in an instant. But my heart was beating fast. Ethan's words showed how strange and complex it was, but there was something gay at that moment. I could feel the closeness, his approach, the way he was moving toward me. Hearing what was going through my mind affected me in an entirely new way. Slowly, as I found high size again, I said, "I was alone, Ethan. I was really alone, but right now everything is so different for the first time. I feel like this young, excited and lost. I feel like something is changing," I said, my voice trembling. It was really hard to express what I was feeling off at moment, but what Ethan made me feel was all too real. Just then, the door opened. A voice came. Clara. Nathan walked in through the door, his eyes wide in shock as he saw us both. In that moment, everything froze. Time seemed to stop. Ethan and I, staring into each other's eyes, froze, not knowing what to do. Nathan was trying to figure out what was going on between us, shock and anger all over his face. His eyes were wide, and he froze for a second, holding his breath and thoughts. "When all hell broke loose, what hell is going on here?" he said, his voice rough and angry. "Everything's spiraled out of control." In an instant, Nathan's voice was so loud and full of rage, it felt like it was shaking through walls of the house. There was anger and disappointment in his eyes. "What Thayal is going on here?" He asked Bootson. After, it wasn't so much the question as it was his anger and bitterness that showed all over his face. He turned to Ethan, pointing at him with shaking hands. Get the hell out of Hero. Don't belong in this house anymore. He said, she's my wife. She's your mother. You shouldn't have dragged her into this swat. The hell do you think you were doing, huh? How could you two just disregard me like that? I couldn't say anything. I was in such shock, my eyes were welling up, but I didn't cry at that, man. Nathan was blaming me, macking. Everything feel like it was my fault. What was I supposed to say? Could I even respond to his anger? Why? Clara, why they hall? Did you do this? Nathan kept going. What did I ever do to you? How? Can Sumione be okay with losing both their husband and their son? Like this you looked me in the eye and lied, that's Allie. Felt broken inside, but not a single word came out. My eyes were filled with tears, but no matter how sad I was, I couldn't bring myself to speak. Nothing was going to change. I knew that then. Ethan shouted, "Oh, come on, get out. There's no place for you two in Thee's house anymore." He was pushing us outdoor, Ethan, and I locked eyes. We didn't say a word for a while, but we both knew how mixed up we felt in sight of Dur. A bit, Ethan calmly said, "Let's go." I nodded. "Let's get out of here." As we stepped outside, the tears just Walden stopped the guilt I felt inside. We is too big for crying to even help. My head was spinning. I didn't know what to do or where to go. Everything had happened so fast, I'd acted without thinking. Now I was lost in this mess that was unfolding, being with Ethan. Thinking about how much I'd hurt him, I ate me up. How could I have done this? It whispered to myself, covering my face with my hands still crying. What did I say to Nathan? How did I betray him with every step? The regret grew deeper. I knew I had no idea what to do, but somehow I thought these feelings would pass with time. Ethan pulled away, but even his leaving gave me a small glimmer of hope. I've only for a moment go ahead. Everything's going to be different from now, I said, watching him walk away. It took another step forward in time. Being alone, despite the darkness I was in, would bring me light again for a second. Took a deep breath and found strength within myself. I would get through this. How? I would find myself again. Everything would start over. If you've made it this far, I know you're hooked on the story. There's so much to share and you don't want to miss any of it. Don't forget to hit the follow button, turn on notifications, and leave a comment on this story. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts.